been a while since I talked to you guys, and actually sat here and spewed out things that can help. A lot of my videos lately have just been vlogs, and I wanted to kind of come on here and actually share some of my story because I feel like a lot of people don't really know it. I've been meaning to say a lot of the things I want to say right here, and I don't know if I'm going to cut anything out or not, but it's been a thing that's long overdue. I feel like I really have been wanting to sit here and actually tell you guys more about me. When I was born, both of my parents were already divorced. And I lived with my mom, and my mom had a really abusive boyfriend. He would beat the living shit out of my mom in front of me. He would drag her into the bathroom by her hair, bloody. These are the first things I remember when I gained consciousness as a kid. And I have a sister, and she's 7 years older than me. He would hit me, he would hit my sister. He tried to rape my sister's friends who were 12 and stuff like that. And, to this day, I don't think my mom really wanted to have a kid with the guy, but my mom actually got pregnant with him, and I doubt that was her choice, but even when she was pregnant, he would kick her down the stairs and stuff. He was also an alcoholic, and, I always said on my channel multiple times, I don't drink, I don't smoke. Obviously, recently, I've drank like 3 times in my whole life, and only on my 21st birthday did I drink for the first time. I still have never smoked, but, the reason that I did initially drink is because I wanted to get over my past and like me as a kid and stuff, because not only was Brian an alcoholic, my mom also drank a lot of alcohol. I had asthma from constant cigarette smoking when I was a kid, and eventually my mom got sick of all the abuse and moved out. And I remember, when I was a kid, I loved my mom like more than anybody in this world. So I love my mom more than anyone, like anything. And sitting there and watching beer bottles get smashed over her head and her always just get hit and stuff. Like, as a kid, I always wanted to help. And I feel like that's kind of why, growing up, I wanted to work out. I wanted to be able to intimidate or do anything. And I think that's kind of where the working out part comes from, because as a kid, when you see your mom get abused in front of you and kicked downstairs, it's like there's nothing more as a boy that you want to do than to help. Eventually, my mom got sick of it and moved out. And because this guy was so evil, I think he didn't want my mom to have the house that she bought, by the way. He was a deadbeat. He didn't have any money. Where this was taking place was an excellent neighborhood. My mom's house was 2 stories. She had a big backyard. It was a very nice neighborhood. And Brian, didn't want her to have that house anymore. When my mom moved out and turned off all the bills and he was just living there, he shot himself in her house. Blew his brains out with a gun in their room, in my mom's room, and my mom never went back there. I was only about 6 or 7 years old when all this happened. A few years later, my mom had met another guy named Steve. This guy would bring me and my sister and my mom together. He was the father figure. He never once laid a finger on my mom. He never yelled at my mom. He could drink 15 beers and not be drunk. He was a stand-up guy, to what I remember. He'd play video games with me. And the reason I hold back on this video is because I feel like I'm going to hurt anyone's feelings that see this, but, I think I've come far enough to realize that if me explaining this is going to help people and me talking about it is going to make me feel better, then I deserve more than anyone to talk about this. Me and my dad didn't get along whatsoever at all. After Brian killed himself, I moved in with my dad because my dad got custody of me. And I always enjoyed being with my mom more than my dad, no matter what. So naturally, I enjoyed Steve's company kind of more than my own real father's company. And I remember one day, me and my best friend Colin, if you guys, any of you on the channel know or remember Colin, we were at Steve's house because he had a really big backyard. And he used to ride dirt bikes in his backyard because his backyard was about a football field long, and he had corn stalks behind his backyard. So the stalks are really tall, but in the cornfield he had trails because he loved to ride dirt bikes, and he had a few friends over and they were drinking. I was about 9 or 10 at the time, maybe even 11, and Colin came with me, and we walked outside with my mom to get ice cream while his friends were over, and we just heard this scream. We didn't know who it was, but it came from the cornfield behind the backyard where the trails were. And I remember telling my best friend Colin, and I love this guy to death, Colin, if you're watching this, bro, I love you so much, man. I said, Colin, can you please go with my mom because I'm scared? And thank goodness Colin was there because he went with my mom. He was brave, a lot braver than I was. I sat there and waited, and I never forget the most vivid memory I have in my life is in that moment, my mom screamed and she said, "He's gonna die on me just like everyone else does." And it turned out that Steve had hit his friend coming around the field the wrong way in a dune buggy or like some sort of buggy on his dirt bike. And he flew off the dirt bike and died pretty much instantly in front of me and my mom. I just felt so helpless so many times in my life, to be honest with you. That was another moment. And I'm kind of glad I didn't see what Steve looked like in that state, but may his soul rest in peace. And that all happened as well by the age of like 10. And at the time, I wasn't getting along with my dad. And after Steve died, my mom, it's kind of hard to talk to her because she's just not as lively and hard to understand, I feel like, because she's been through so much stuff. Circling back to Brian, my mom had a kid with him. My blood sister, she doesn't even know I exist. So she's probably like 14, 15 now. And she doesn't even know that I exist. And she doesn't know my sister exists either. So she doesn't even know who her family is. Brian's other daughter was around my age when all this stuff happened. I think a year older, maybe. That's Brian's daughter, so I'm not related to her. But Brian's daughter, her sister is also my sister. Apparently, my sister that I don't know thinks that Brian's daughter, her sister, is her aunt. And her aunt is her mom. I also have a sister that I don't even know because of the situation, because they try to hide Brian from her. It's kind of like Sarada from Boruto, how they don't want her to know like Sasuke's past and stuff. If you guys watch that show, it's literally what's going on there. Growing up, I didn't really like my dad. I was always treated terribly, to be honest, even though they gave me a roof under my head and they gave me food, and that's more than a lot of people get, and I understand that. And I always felt like the house was coming down on me and at my dad, because I lived with my dad, my grandma, and my uncle, and they all treated me so unfairly when I was younger, and they do the classic parent where they try to cope with, oh, we gave you we did so much for you, but in reality, it was like a living hell living at that house. And I would always tell my sister how I just wish I lived with my mom. And I'd get in arguments, and everything would always be my fault, and I'd always get screamed at every day, to where I had to learn how to not yell at Erin, my girlfriend, when I met her, because all I knew my whole life was to yell at people, because my whole life everyone always yelled at me, and maybe that's why I'm so loud. But I always got treated really bad in there, and I could get so much more in depth with the story, but you guys basically now know the gist of it. And my dad was also an alcoholic. I get hit with a belt in my back. I wouldn't get hit in my ass sometimes. He would just hit me in my back with a belt. And the abuse was still alive, just more mental than it was physical with Brian at my dad's house. And every day I was always in my room, and I never wanted to see my family. And to be honest, my friends are more of my family than my family has ever been to me. And if my family's watching this, it's just the truth. I've already tried to talk to them about this, but Colin, Dylan, and Jacob, if you guys see this, and Joe, you guys are more... It sucks to talk about. Colin, Dylan, and Jacob, and Joe, I'm not gonna fucking cry, are more of my family than anyone's ever been. Okay, I gotta cut out like the last minute. Anyway, the reason I get emotional when I say that is because it sucks to say some shit like that, I don't want to sit here and fucking cry, I'm sorry. I felt like I didn't even have a fucking family. This shit could have it could have broken me, you know what I'm saying? Everything I do comes from here, you know what I'm saying? Because that's all I know. If you're going through something similar with alcohol or drugs, or you're addicted to something, or you went through something terrible, or somebody passed away, as somebody who's been through some shit like this, you need to stand up, you know what I'm saying? And always getting treated like shit my whole life, and everyone doubting me, I just never let that shit change me, bro. I wish I wasn't fucking crying. It's so easy to think, why me? It's so easy to be in that moment, but there's always a person going through some shit harder than you, And you just can't let it affect you. You can't let people doubting you, you can't let bad things that happen to you define you. Because they don't. Because us as people, we're tested by these things. And maybe by God, we're tested. to see how much we can endure. That's why you gotta be strong, you know? You have to be strong in those moments, because if you're not strong and you can't endure what the universe throws at you, then you're just gonna be a loser. And you don't wanna be a fucking loser. Life is two paths. It's a negative path and a positive path. There's only two paths. You can pick the positive way or the negative way. And I've been down the negative way, and it fucking sucked. As somebody who's went down the positive path his whole life and I never fucking listened to anybody. I always did what I wanted. I was always independent, and I always trusted myself. And recently, for the first time ever in my life, I picked the negative path. As somebody who never let themselves down, maybe some people don't know what it's like to pick yourself up. You know, all you know is letting yourself down. But when you finally get a taste of what it feels like to win, and you sit there and let yourself down every fucking day, and you know you're not doing what you should be doing, it really, really can show you, when you've tasted success, how terrible it feels to be a fucking loser. And this world will break you down, bro. It will fucking break you. It breaks you through the smallest shit to the biggest shit. But you know, when you wake up in the fucking morning, you're the only person that can take action and help yourself out. You're the only person that can speak up. You're the only person that can defend yourself. And you're the only person that can change being a loser to a winner. And to be someone who's great is to be someone who doesn't listen to naysayers and doesn't listen to haters. If you wanted it bad enough, think about if you went your whole life chasing one goal, do you really think if you actually tried and actually put in the necessary amount of effort, you wouldn't achieve it? It's inevitable when you believe in yourself. And that's why when you wake up, you gotta believe, bro. I didn't have a support system. And when people say, you know, all Lexx cares about is money, or Lexx is this, Lexx is that, I don't give a fuck, because I know me and I know my morals, I know my values, okay? I wouldn't be here speaking this shit to you. I wouldn't be sitting here on my camera saying this if I listened to what anybody said negatively about me. And I love you all, man. I love you all. I don't care if you fucking hate me. I don't care if you don't like me. I don't care if you don't fuck with me. I want you to win. I hope this helps some people, because it was fucking hard to talk about that shit. But even when you feel alone, you're not, you know, because you always got yourself. And it's up to you, bro. Everything's up to you. All right? So do what you need to do.